do wonder if we ever get to the point where we ask, hey, did they call him up a year too early? And again, I think he's too good at the little things and sort of the intangibles. And I think his mindset is so good that I don't think it really matters. But I don't know. It's a thing I've been kind of thinking about recently, the way that, not that the hype died. It didn't. But, it was so high. When he started, it was such a high bar.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll ever ask that question. And welcome into the Bruins Beat on CLNS Media. My name is Evan Marinofsky, joined by the one, the only, Conor Ryan. Conor, what is up?
I'm doing well, Evan. How you doing?
Doing great. Want to mention we're partnered and we're brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel, our good friends over at HelloFresh. Want to make the game more interesting? FanDuel does that. Want to make your dinner, your lunch, maybe your breakfast more interesting? HelloFresh does that. So that's a dynamic duo, like a 1-2 punch of sponsors. So I appreciate that. The big news, we'll get to kind of stuff that happened this weekend in a bit, but the big news of Monday was something we kind of anticipated was going to happen. Matt Poitras is sent to the World Juniors for Canada. Big deal. That's a huge deal. I think us hockey fans here in the United States always grew up watching it. It's a big deal here. I'm not trying to minimize it in the United States because it's a huge deal. But up in Canada, that's like the biggest thing you can do. That is like becoming president. I mean, it is a huge thing to go to the World Juniors. So, first of all, congrats to Matt Poitras. It's a big deal. What are your initial thoughts? We'll start with his development, and did you think it was right that the Bruins let him go to the WJC?
Yeah, I think there's pros and cons to this, Evan. I kind of go back and forth on it, but I think from the Bruins' perspective, I can see why. I think when you look at this stretch where, they've been resting him a couple of games, he's, had his minutes cut, he's been stapled to the bench in third period. Maybe a stretch here where you go to World Juniors where you're going to be a featured player for them. He's going to be right up there with Celebrini as one of the top guys for Team Canada.
Is Matt Poitras better than Macklin Celebrini? I mean, the
people are saying I don't.
The people are wondering.
He didn't go to BU, so there's that part of it. So you have to factor that in. But I think if you're the Bruins and you put him over there, he gets the excitement of representing his country on an international stage, playing heavy minutes, power play minutes, playing a featured role there. And even though it's, high pressure, high octane environment he's going to be in, it's still, under 20 competition. He should rip up that tournament, considering he's already been pretty productive up in the NHL ranks. So if you're the Bruins, I could see why you're mapping out that situation where, all right, we send Poitras down there. You get him rolling, have him feel confident about his game. And then when he comes back here in, I think, January 8th or whenever he's next available, if they go all the way, Team Canada, if he's back, has, a point per game stretch, wins a gold medal or something like that, puts himself on the radar, feels good about his game, that can go a long way towards, getting him energized, getting him ready to go and having him ready for this final stretch of the season. Because the last thing you want is a guy who, again, he's been solid, but if you're going through the ups and downs, hitting a few walls here, you want him to build that confidence back up. And I think getting over to World Juniors, getting on a roll there could really do some good for him.
It's almost like his version of Providence. I'm not minimizing it by that. I'm just saying it's a way to go somewhere else, play, more minutes, play a bigger role, and kind of regain that confidence. I'm fine with it. I know there are people out there who are against it. I understand the argument against it, but I really do think it's a good idea to go somewhere else, build the confidence. And, think of it from the Bruins' perspective, right? Let's say the Bruins said, sorry, Matt, you're staying with us. And it would make sense. Zacha's out right now. That's a guy, he does play a role. I know his minutes have been cut, but allowing him to play back into that, he probably not going to be the happiest camper in the world, considering if his minutes continue to get cut and he's missing out on an opportunity he's grown up dreaming of doing, that might piss him off. So again, I go back to it's a chance for him to build up his confidence, round out parts of his game. Don Sweeney mentioned on Monday, being a bit of a leader, being a main guy for that team. And it's a break from the rigors of the NHL. It is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know and you mentioned it's intense. There's pressure, especially from Canada. I mean, they don't win. It's a freaking huge deal up there. But still, it's a little bit of a break from the grind of an 82-game season in the NHL, and he's playing with guys who are his own age and younger. So again, I just go back to, I don't think it's a bad thing. I know people connect this to Fabian Lysell, which I want to get to some comments regarding Fabian Lysell later in this episode. But Fabian Lysell and Matt Poitras are two very different cats, very different guys, and I don't suspect Poitra's going to go there and lay an egg. I think, again, Poitra's game here, I think, has been good. Like, I know the production hasn't been up to maybe what we would have hoped, or, being a top 6 center or something like that. But I still think that his game has been good. The little things have been pretty solid. I know there's been some lulls, but overall, I have not hated his game up here. And I think going to the World Juniors can kind of only help with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the confidence level and all that stuff is going to be really key. The only con I would say, because even if he's, or maybe mentioning that he's going to be gone for, I think, 9 games if he's not back until January 8th, like you miss him there. But again, Zacha's getting healthy. He could be back as soon as Tuesday. Kiki's been really good in his absence, so he could be your 3C. Like, you have options there at center, which is a very promising development for the Bruins for this stretch here. The only maybe con I would have is just maybe it's like just the overall workload. And it's not to say that he's not ready for, World Junior competition or all that stuff. But I think when you look at the Bruins and how cognizant they are about, having him avoid hitting a wall here, most games he's ever played in a season, I think, was 68 with the Storm last season. So when you look at the fact that, yes, it's a different level of competition, a different workload when it's NHL and that's scheduled to World Juniors. But if he's going to World Juniors and they win the gold medal, I think he's playing 7 games in 11 days. So you got those high-pressure games, probably playing 18 to 20-plus minutes a night. You come right back into it for this final stretch here, plus the playoffs. Like, the last thing you want is also having that stretch there, or it's early March or something like that, and all of a sudden he hits that wall and he's done. Like, there's only so much fuel these guys have, so that could be maybe the one concern there, is that maybe, it's better just to have him here and sit him every couple of games and manage him as opposed to sending him over there. But I think for the Bruins, it's something they obviously considered, and I think for them, it's all right. He's done a pretty good job so far at fighting through all these challenges we've thrown at him. Let's get his confidence back going again, because every time we've thrown something at him, he's responded. But if he's playing at a high level, feeling good about his game, he should be able to tackle whatever we throw at him as the season goes along.
Yeah, I agree. You hit on a point there of what do the Bruins do from here, and I want to get to that. But first, Connor, a quick word from our sponsor.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than NFL. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including you got spreads, you got your player props, you got over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Connor, when you're, people probably think, oh my God, where do you guys record this podcast? Is it, is it in a big, beautiful studio? What do you do it on? We do it on our laptops. But just fine. And sometimes my laptop sounds like it's about to take off. Like, it's just like the jet engine is just pumping. And right now, it feels and sounds like it's going to explode any minute.
Okay.
So
if you cut out, I'll call the I'll call the ambulance.
Yes. Just shoot them a text or leave a voicemail or something.
I probably call them when they can. Yeah.
Hello. Can you go get Evan? It's funny, when I was at the Floodmar this weekend and all the prep tournaments, someone brought up an interesting point regarding Macklin Celebrini. So the oldest right now in prep is like, the oldest of the old kids are like 2004 born kids. And then the seniors are 05s, 2005s. Macklin Celebrini is a 2006.
Yikes.
It's incredible. So you hit on the what do the Bruins do? Obviously, Zaka's on IR. You have Coyle. Do you elevate Geeky? You have Frederick. You got Beecher. What do you do if you're the Bruins right now? I mean, how do you manage, especially those middle two lines with Poitras going to be gone for a bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Zaka's healthy, it makes it a lot easier. You can go back to the usual top six there with Zaka and Coyle in place. And then, yeah, I think it's a good opportunity for Geeky, who it's kind of almost like the same kind of script as to what you're hoping to get out of Poitras, right? Where it's like you put him in an elevated role somewhere else, different circumstance, get his game going, having him feel confident. So not to say that, Geeky and World Juniors, but he was a guy that for the last few weeks, coming back from his injury, didn't really have a spot in the lineup, right? Is he a third line guy? He was on the fourth line a little bit, goes up, takes over for Zaka in the top six, and all of a sudden has 4 points in 4 games, playing over 18 minutes a night, feeling really good about his game. So I think he's the first guy up if you're looking for another guy to slot in at that maybe 3C spot in the bottom six. And then, yeah, probably Beecher at 4C. So I think, it's something that Don Sweeney mentioned on Monday that it wasn't the leading cause as to why they put Poitras or they sent him to World Juniors. But one thing that played into it was the fact that Zaka's coming back, which is huge. And also Geeky's playing at a high level right now. So if you can have Zaka, Coyle, Geeky, and Beecher as your 4 signmen for right now, pretty good spot. That group should be able to hold its own over this, 8-9 game stretch.
It should. And I think Geeky's game is trending to the point where they feel, and I think he's kind of earned the right to get a shot at that number 3 center spot. And again, it's interesting. Like, Poitras has been good so far this year. I'm curious, though, if over these next 9 games or so, if Geeky is really good in that third line center spot and they sort of start to find something, like, do you think there's a chance? I mean, Poitras, when he comes back, he's going to get a roster spot back.
Yes.
But does Geeky move to the wing? Is there any? I mean, I think Poitras better down the middle, but like, I do wonder, like, if Geeky's so good. Again, this obviously has not happened yet. The news just dropped on Monday, so let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But let's also get a little bit ahead of ourselves. Is there any chance that when Poitras comes back, there's sort of a battle for that third line center spot?
I mean, it could be, yeah. Again, Sweeney was, mentioned that as well, that, again, he can play wing, Poitras, but I think they want to keep him in that spot. This is the guy that they envision as being a top 6 guy. I don't think you want to – he's already got a lot on his plate at 19 in terms of just staying afloat, holding his own down both ends of the ice. So I think they want to keep him there, but I would like to see him and Geeky back together. They were pretty solid, especially early on in the year. We talked about it before with Geeky, but I think he's so good at bringing the puck down low, operating that high danger ice. And I think you get him playing confident in his game with a guy like Poitras who has the passing ability to send pucks down there where he tends to hang out. That could be a very effective, whatever you want to call them, bottom 6, third line grouping. If you kind of, if you view how Montgomery tends to put guys in pairs on these different lines, Geeky and Poitras, I think, can do a lot of damage together. So I couldn't really see, unless Geeky goes sicko mode, has 7 points or something over these 9 games, what have you. But I think the priority for the Bruins should be keeping those 2 guys together at least once Poitras does come back.
Sicko mode. That's it. That's the right thing. As the kids say. It's funny. I think people have sort of been surprised by Poitras' usage, not being played in third periods at times, having kind of scheduled days off, games off. And I wonder if we're ever going to ask the question, was he called up too soon? Because I don't think he was. I think early returns so far is that he's fit and he's earned his spot. But I do wonder, I mean, you remember a few months ago, the hype was high. He was producing. And he's still producing to an extent. But I wonder if we ever get to the point, again, because I don't think they did call up too early. But I do wonder if we ever get to the point where we ask, hey, did they call him up a year too early? And again, I think he's too good at the little things and sort of the intangibles. And I think his mindset is so good that I don't think it really matters. But I don't know. It's a thing I've been kind of thinking about recently, the way that, not that the hype died, it didn't, but like just it was so high. You know, I mean, when he started, it was such a high bar.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll ever ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, I think even though he's gone through some of these lulls, I guess, which I think we all expected, and I think if you thought he was going to put up a 50-point season, you're fucking crazy. But even if he ends the year with, I don't know, 30-ish points for a guy who's 19, who I think has accelerated his timeline, I'd rather have a guy like Poitras take his lumps at 19 and go through this now and come back at age 20 poised for a 50-plus point season, as opposed to have him spend a year up with the Storm in the OHL and have a 110-point season. Would look pretty cool. We get pretty excited, but there's still that hump you'd have to go through where he's 20 years old and maybe he goes through the same exact struggles we saw before. Like, it's still another year of junior. You still, any player, regardless if you're 18, 19, 20, 21, you have to go through the challenge of night in and night out, the travel, the schedule, the competition, taking the lumps of maybe sitting for a third period, getting scratched from a game. Like, it's good to get that out of your system now at 19, where you're still showing that promise and you're still, remaining competitive now, as opposed to not delaying it, because he's a special case, but getting that out now, where all of a sudden next year you're looking at him. If he finishes the year with 35-ish points and you see the promise he's had, and like next year you're like, all right, he's 20, he knows what to do, he knows how to train differently, he's ready to step into a top 6 role next year. It's a pretty good situation to be in if you're the Bruins.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there will be. I'm just curious if at some point people start tossing the questions around. But I agree. I agree with you. It's interesting. I don't know if you read, Scott McLaughlin did a story on WEI a few weeks ago, or maybe a week or two ago, about Beecher and Poitras living together. I'm not sure if you read it. And he mentioned Poitras getting an air fryer to kind of learn how to cook and to do easy meals. And what I want to tell Matt Poitras is, have you heard of HelloFresh? HelloFresh, it makes cooking easy, fun. I mean, you know what? Let's hear about HelloFresh real quick. How about that? Quick break in the action to tell you about our delicious friends over at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. A crazy schedule can make it easy to fall back into your dinner time recipe rut, but keep mealtime exciting with over 40 recipes to choose from every week. There's always something delicious to discover with HelloFresh. Turn to HelloFresh Market for yummy add-ons and enjoy the season's limited time fall flavors lineup. It's that time of year, right? Things get you in the mood, like apple cider cake with caramel sauce. All the ingredients come fresh, from the crushed tomatoes to the Italian chicken sausage mix to the Parmesan cheese. It's delicious, and I feel like a chef when I'm doing it. What's better than that? And this is a busy time of year for me with hockey starting up. I don't always have a ton of time, so this recipe makes it quick to enjoy something amazing. So join in on the fun. Go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. Again, go to HelloFresh.com/50Bruins and use code 50Bruins for 50% off plus free shipping. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. Now, back to the show. So we talked a lot about Matt Poitras as a young player and what he's able to do and what he's done and where he can go and how promising he's been so far. One player who has sort of stalled is Fabian Lysell. And I know he's had a little bit better of a season this year, but Ryan Mougenel made some pretty direct comments about him on Sunday night. Now, forgive me, Connor, I don't have the quotes in front of me. And I know I tried to look it up on Twitter. I couldn't quite find the quote. Someone said it to me early on Monday, what the quote was. And it was, I know this is so unprofessional. I can't find the quote. But he basically said along the lines of he's going to have to work a hell of a lot harder to get up to Boston. That was sort of the crux of the quote. I don't have it exactly in front of me.
I believe the most, the stock quote is, he said, quote, he's going to start buying in or he won't play for Jim Montgomery, which is...
Bingo. That's the quote. That's the quote. Thank you for pulling that up. First of all, it's the Bruce Cassidy School of Media, if you're a coach. So gloves are off, But to me, this feels almost like a last resort by Ryan Mougenel in the sense that Ryan Mujanel is a pretty positive guy when it comes. If you ask about his players, Dev Camp, down in Providence, whatever it is, he typically has nice responses about his guys. Pretty upbeat. Doesn't usually take shots at guys in the media, at least that I've seen. And to me, this feels almost a little bit like a last resort. Now, I wonder what Don Sweeney feels about this, considering that, this will get around and teams, if they didn't already know, kind of do now know. But it almost feels like a last resort to get this kid to get going. Now, again, I'm not down in Providence every day. I'm not, covering them by any means. Mark Diver is my my sight into it. But I do think that, Fabian Lysell, from everything that we've seen and all that, has stalled a bit. And, I know the word bust gets thrown around a lot. It did, especially at the end of training camp when he didn't make the team. I don't think, I still don't think we're in bust territory, but I do think you need to see something. You do need to see some movement, because I do think there is, in other teams' eyes, a bit of a red flag when it comes to the fact that he's not at the NHL level yet, and he was a first-round pick a few years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for him, you look at his production, he's got 17 points in 23 games. So it's not like he's dogging in terms of, the strengths of his game, but it's kind of like what we heard for years, right, with like Georgi Merkulov, who I think has had a really, really strong year for Providence. But again, what was the thing we heard 2 years ago when he really kind of showcased his skill set during Dev Camp? It's like, gifted offensively, holy shit, got to work on his defensive game. And again, as you said, I'm not down in Providence all the time, but I think from listening to Mark Diver, who's got his pulse better than anyone on that team, he said that he's made strides. I don't think he's going to be winning any Selkies down the road, but he's clearly, it's an area of emphasis. He's worked on it. He's rounding out his overall game, which is what you need to do to, punch your ticket to the NHL. So whether it's, floating too much, defensively, or not adhering to the finer details of the game, you can't just be, if you're Lysell, a guy that's offense only, not for a team, especially like the Bruins, where you need to be defensively responsible in order to earn, steady minutes in the lineup. So that's definitely something worth keeping tabs on for Lysell. And as you said, Mujanel is a very positive guy. So being kind of this direct and blunt about that, it maybe is the wake-up call guy like Lysell needs. Because, again, you can be putting up all these points, finishing the year with 40, 50 points on the AHL, but if you don't have the overall complete package of what you need to do to survive the NHL, you're not going to get that call. So you need to learn that sooner rather than later.
There are a lot of guys who put up a lot of points in the AHL, but they do not have that next thing that it takes to be successful in the NHL. And you hope that that isn't the case with Lysell. Again, the skill is high, the shot, all those things are good. It's just that play away from the puck. And again, I have not watched enough Providence. Forgive me. I have not watched enough Providence this year to give an accurate description of his game. I can only go off of what's being said down there. And that, there's been strides. But again, if Mujanel's coming out and saying that, not the greatest sign in the world. Back to Boston. This past weekend, the Bruins, 3 straight overtime games. Devils. Then you got the Islanders, and you got the Rangers, all the teams in New York. Now you got to they should have to go to Buffalo now and play another overtime game. That's what they should have to do. Just complete the New York road trip. But goaltending, it's interesting. The goaltending is still so damn elite. I mean, you see that Linus Ullmark save with his skate. Things are going well when you stick out your skate, it hits the blade. You save it. Bruins go down the other way and score. And then Swayman again was great on Saturday night against the Rangers. I think it's encouraging that we're sitting here. We're recording this on December 18th. And what are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No math. I don't know. Math's not my thing. We're over 2 months into the season. We're, near the halfway point, or we're getting closer to the halfway point. And the goaltending is still as good as it was, or almost as good as it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, no, it's something that's been steady throughout the season, and you're going to have to need it, right? And I will say the one thing that I think has been really promising, again, you lose in overtime to, the Rangers and the Devils. So, it's not the ideal situation, but I think as much as the goaltending has been bailing you out, I think it's promising. I think at least to see, I think the defensive game has been better the last couple of games. There's been, I think, fewer games where it's like, if the goaltending wasn't there, you'd lose 5-1. Now it's like the goaltending's helping you out, but I think they're doing a better job at cleaning up the net front, limiting some of these rush chances, and supporting their goaltending better. But even if you were hitting a stretch here where things weren't working out, or players were really struggling defensively, regardless of what the situation has been, whether it's Swayman or Ullmark, both those guys are playing at a high level. It's good to see. And I think Swayman's been really strong all year. Ullmark's had a few, lulls, or maybe it's not. It's probably unfair to say because I think it's just he's not at the same Vezina level, caliber that we saw last season. But he's been really, really good, especially as of late. So as long as you have both those guys out there, you're going to be in every single game. There's not going to be a lot of clunkers in a row where you're going to be losing by 2-3 goals this season.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be interesting this week. Obviously, the Bruins play the Minnesota Wild twice, who I just saw are not going to start Marc-Andre Fleury in Pittsburgh, which is an interesting move. And then the Bruins also play the Winnipeg Jets. Hell of a time spending Christmas Eve around Winnipeg. That's it's like basically being in the North Pole. You might as well be up there in the North Pole. Real quick, Ottawa. Let's go, DJ Smith. That was, kind of expected.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it kind of took them this long. And I don't think you and I have discussed, I don't know if we did a podcast about it, or a podcast around it. But Craig Berube beat the Bruins in the Stanley Cup final and is now done in St. Louis. So lots of coaching changes, lots of coaching moves. You can bet, by the way, preseason, you can bet on all that stuff over at FanDuel, which is hell of a choice. Get to pick who's going to get fired. But anyways, Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at Boston.com and the Boston Globe?
Yeah, we're going to have you covered every step of the way this season, whether it's recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. You can read all of it over at Boston.com. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all of that. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. You Bruins Beat listeners, have a great rest of your week.